Hi, I'm Heather Hunley with Look Up Indiana, and today I'm talking with Andrea Schrader. Andrea, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we asked you to sit down for an interview today because you have a message that you want to share. Where would you like to begin?
Well, I guess I could begin with this past October 2016, I lost my daughter to a heroin overdose. And I think the message that I'd like to give to people is that I never thought this would happen to my daughter. I just can't. If someone had told me a year and a half ago that my daughter would be dead of a heroin overdose, and even her, I probably would have laughed and said, not her. The message that I feel that I want to let people know is that this is something that is happening all over the country, everywhere. It is an epidemic. And if this can happen to my daughter, this could happen to anybody. And that's why I'm a voice and why I'm out here in the community doing what I'm doing. Even though I lost my daughter to a heroin overdose, by speaking and sharing her story, I feel that if I at least reach somebody, whether it's a family member that's going through this with their loved one, whether it's somebody that's in active addiction and addicted to opioids or whatever, alcohol, whatever the drug is, I feel that by sharing this and raising awareness will help reduce the stigma so people won't look at this always as a moral failure. That's my message. I call everything that I've done since Miriah has passed. I named her a website and a Facebook page. I've called it Miriah's Journey because her journey may have ended here, but her journey is still living through me. So it's my journey now. Mm-hmm. And that's my message. I want to share her life, and I also want her to be known not just as, say, for instance, a poster child of a heroin overdose. She was so much more than that. She was a mother, she was a sister, she was a daughter, she was a friend she had so many friends. Mm-hmm. And within 5 months from the time she started using, we lost her. And it's such a serious problem. And it shouldn't happen to anybody. And so many of us are in this club that have buried our children. And that's what I hope to do, is raise awareness.
That's something that, we are passionate about with Look Up. Mm-hmm. And one of our message is healing our community with hope.
Right.
And we want to start the conversation and silence the stigma around mental and behavioral health.
Right.
And we know that there is an epidemic right now with opioids. Mm-hmm. And I want to talk a little bit more about your daughter, Miriah. Mm-hmm. And who was Miriah? You said, you don't want her to be remembered as a poster child and just someone that was addicted to heroin. Why do you think, I'm sure that's the question that all parents have is why, but who was she, and maybe what could others learn from her story to maybe prevent this?
Well, you mentioned behavioral health and mental health, and Miriah struggled with depression more than anything. Mm. She had a lot of emotional problems and issues. She never had a problem with addiction. She experimented in high school and in her young life with drugs, and she wasn't a heavy drinker. She was, like I said, she just made a really bad decision in a very vulnerable time. Mm-hmm. So prior to that, Miriah as a child, she came from a good family. My family was, well known in the community. She had every opportunity. She just didn't look like somebody that would be a heroin addict, and that's mm-hmm. the thing. But like you said, you want to know a little bit more personal about her? She was an amateur artist. She could draw anything. She was a very giving and kind person. She loved her 3 daughters and adored her daughters. Even though she didn't have a professional camera, but she could certainly make her iPhone into beautiful pictures. She would dress her kids up and take them to Lakeside Park because she was a struggling, single mom, mm-hmm. and didn't have a lot of money, so she would take her own pictures. Mm-hmm. And they were beautiful. Mm-hmm. She could do hair and makeup from the time she could walk. She was fun. That's what she loved to do with her girls, is sit down and we're going to have a makeup party. And she'd invite my kids over because I am remarried now and I have younger children too. So we were 20 years apart. We were like friends, when she became an adult and a mom. And we would call each other every day after we dropped our kids off at school. And I sort of feel like I've lost my best friend. She was very unbiased, non-judgmental. She had a laugh, like it just was so contagious, very wheezy. And she just very passionate about like social justice issues. And she was so looking forward to the presidential election. I mean, this was somebody that it's just so hard to believe that this happened to her. And, she was our children and our loved ones that get here, that get to this point. They didn't just wake up one morning and say, I'm going to be an addict. She wasn't a prescription drug user before. 4 out of 5 of the people that transition to heroin usually are. But they were all more than just that. And I know I've said that before. And it doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't how much money you make. This is happening all over. And my hope is that I can bring some hope to people, even if they're going through the worst times in their life, by sharing with them about Miriah and about what we went through. Maybe they won't be so afraid. A lot of people hide in the shadows from this because they're afraid of the stigma and being looked at and judged. Mm-hmm. We wouldn't treat somebody with cancer like this, like they're treated. We have to start changing how we look at addiction and what's happening, because we are losing people every day. Probably as we've sat here, we've lost a few. Mm-hmm. So that's my message.
Thank you. I think that just these conversations, and like you said, 1 or 2 people that might see it or watch, if it prompts them to think, I don't need to hide this. Mm-hmm. I can ask for help.
Right.
Other people have been through this. Let's come out of the shadows, out of the darkness, and figure out collectively as a community, as families, how we can.
And I also think it's important to educate, and that's something. I almost have my degree, and I'm hoping, and I'm already starting now. I have so many speaking engagements coming up. I've had a lot of youth organizations ask me to speak. Mm-hmm. I spoke recently at the Allen County Juvenile Center to the residents there. Okay. I spoke to my daughter's 8th grade class at Lane Middle School. And that I enjoy. I'm not saying something that I enjoy, but I enjoy the feedback I get.
Sure. Because
I think with some of them it resonates, the story does. And I think that's also a key. If we can reach the young people before it gets, before they'll hear this story and they'll think, gosh, if they get that fork in the road, hopefully they take the higher fork and not the lower road.
Right.
So they might remember, remember Miriah, remember she can't be around us anymore. Remember how much your siblings and your loved ones and your mom and dad would miss you. So.
Is there anything else you want to share?
I think I've shared a lot there.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I think so.
Well, thank you for being vulnerable and talking about this hard subject. And we know there's value in sharing your story in that conversation. So.
And thank you for having me, and thank you so much. The Lutheran Foundation has been such an influence in my life since she's passed. So.
If they want to learn more, anybody watching, about your daughter Miriah, do you want to just say what her Facebook and website?
Yeah, the website is just mariahsjourney.com, all lowercase, and then you can go to Facebook, and we have a page, and it's called Miriah's Journey, and with the apostrophe, M-I-R-I-A-H. It's not M-A, it's M-I-R-I-A-H apostrophe S, Journey.
Miriah's Journey.
Yeah.
Great. Oh, and before I forget, we always do this on these shows.
Okay.
It is our Look Up t-shirt.
Oh, great.
With our Start the Conversation, which is what you're doing
in
Silencing the Stigma.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.